Hey guys, Steve here from Vorsprung Suspension. I haven't made any videos for quite a while. So one thing we've been getting a lot of requests for the past 6 months, more than that, has been explanations of the Secus, which is our newest product, and also how it stacks up and compares to the Smashpot and the Luftkappe. So for those of you who are not familiar, we have Smashpot, coil spring conversion for single crown enduro forks basically. We also have the Secus. That's an air spring upgrade for the same type of fork. It may not make sense to people that we offer these competing upgrades, right? So we have the Smashpot and the Secus that are about the same price. They go in the same forks for the most part. They're both trying to achieve the same thing actually. What we're really trying to achieve is the best possible balance of initial stroke compliance and support through the middle of the stroke, along with basically bottom out control, some sort of bottom out protection. That means either air spring ramp up, or in the case of the Smashpot here, what this cartridge inside it does is provides a mechanism for hydraulic bottoming control, which is externally adjusted using this dial here. Which one is for you or not for you? So the Smashpot is, as you can quite clearly see, coil spring conversion. The Secus, being simply an air spring upgrade, is quite a bit lighter. Smashpot is pretty heavy. You can, most of the time, you'd be looking at adding around about 1 pound, 450, 500 grams to your fork. This does vary a bit fork to fork. There's less of a weight difference in a Fox 38 than there is in a RockShox Pike, for example. So both the Secus and the Smashpot are designed to be somewhat modular. So the Secus, for example, we have a couple of different foot stud kits. This one here is a RockShox foot stud. This one is out of a Fox 36, and they allow you to use the same basic product across multiple forks, should you wish to take it with you to a new fork. The Smashpot does the same. We basically change out the top cap and the foot stud. So if you're looking at both of these upgrades, there's a few things that you'll want to consider. First one, most obviously, is the weight. So the Smashpot is quite a bit heavier than the Secus. The Secus adds about 130 grams to most forks. The Smashpot, like I said, 400 to 500 grams. It can be less in some forks, it can be more in others. So it does depend on the spring rate that you're using and the exact fork configuration that you have. Anyway, if weight is a big concern, go to Secus, don't ask any more questions. The other big difference between the two is friction. So the Smashpot is the clear winner here. The cartridge itself is open bath, uses 100 ml of oil for the anti-bottoming. Because it has no sliding seals, it really is negligible friction. Coil springs, likewise, you're literally bending a piece of metal. There's no significant friction to speak of. Air springs, however, with the Secus and with the Luftkappe, we're still using the same seals as the stock air spring. So all the same issues that exist with friction and service intervals and so forth are still present. That they're not changed nor eliminated by either the Luftkappe or the Secus. So in that regard, with the Secus you get something that's lighter and it's more adjustable because you simply put air pressure into it to adjust the spring rate versus swapping out a coil spring with the Smashpot. But you also, unfortunately, still have to deal with seal friction. Seal friction is actually a pretty significant part of the total friction in modern forks. In many cases, the air spring seal friction is around about 50% of the entire system's friction. So significant amount. Cutting that in half is, certainly a significant improvement, and that is what the Smashpot allows. So if your first priority really is just like absolutely best possible control, traction, and small bump compliance, then the Smashpot is going to win. It's very hard to beat a coil spring for that. If you want something that is arguably a bit more versatile, lighter weight, easier to pedal uphill, so forth, maintains almost the exact same spring curve as the Smashpot through the first 2/3 of the travel, then the Secus is probably what you're after. The Secus is mounted externally to the fork, right? And so obviously the Smashpot is fully contained within the fork leg. And unsurprisingly, when we released this, we got a lot of questions about, what happens when you smack it on something? Like, I'm just going to break it straight off. You might, but you probably won't. So far, we've actually only had one case of anyone managing to do that. A gentleman who managed to crash in such a way that his bike landed upside down on a rock or a stump or something like that, and actually bent the thing that way. For impacts coming from underneath like that, the thing can actually flex quite significantly until it's supported by the fork leg. It takes a lot more force than you might think to damage something like that. The torque that we specify on here also allows that if you hit it sideways, it can actually rotate out of the way into the brake caliper. It is more damage resistant than it may first appear. So which one is for you? Secus, in my opinion, is what I run on my personal bike. It is more adjustable, it is lighter, it's completely reversible. The Smashpot, being a coil spring conversion, may mar up the inside of the stanchions and make it impossible to go back to an air spring in a 36 Lyric or a Pike. In the 38s and the Zeb kits that we have, the stanchion is actually lined internally. That's to keep noise down and to also protect the stanchion because we have the space in those. So that means that in those forks you should expect to be able to go back to an air spring should you wish to carry the Smashpot forward to your next bike. Where does the lift cap fit in to all of this? So this is just a replacement piston, goes on your air shaft. Don't use it with the Secus. Don't use it with the Secus. In the RockShox forks, it physically won't work, and the Fox forks, it will actually be detrimental to performance. So the lift cap is an increase in negative chamber volume. It's a piston that basically robs from the positive to give to the negative, which actually sounds kind of evil. The purpose of this is to make the initial stroke much more compliant and to allow you to run a bit higher pressure. Gives you more support in the middle of the travel and much better compliance right at the start, because the typical downfall of air springs is that they're very stiff at the start of the travel relative to their stiffness in the middle of the travel. So they tend to have a characteristic that's sort of stiff at the start, soft in the middle, stiff again at the end. Watch some of our previous videos on air spring curves for more details on that. The lift caps are significantly cheaper than either the Secus or the Smashpot. If you want the best bang for your buck upgrade you can get, if the lift cap fits your fork, it is unquestionably the best value upgrade. For a relatively small amount of money, you can make a big difference to the performance of the fork. The Secus and the Smashpot take it a lot further, but they cost a lot more as well. Anyway, I hope this makes it a bit clearer what the design intent of each of these is. We are not purists. We don't believe that everything should be coil or that everything should be air. Some people want one, some people want the other. We'll let you make that choice, and we'll try to provide you with the best options that we can to make either of those choices as good for you as they can be. We are sort of trying to converge on the same point here. Ideal world would have a coil spring that weighs the same as air and has the has the same bottoming protection that an air spring has. In practice, that's much harder to achieve. Likewise, the ideal air spring would have no friction whatsoever. Would be completely linear through the first 2/3 or so of the travel. Would be looking at the exact same characteristic. So these are two different ways to approach the same problem, or to try to converge on the same characteristic that we have basically, that the industry seems to have come to a consensus is pretty well ideal as far as spring curves go. Why do we focus so much on springs and not dampers? The reason is simple, and that is that air springs have a lot more room for improvement than dampers do. While people are constantly running their dampers backed right off, compression damping backed right off, because of the friction and the innate energy dissipation of air springs themselves. Changing compression characteristics, it's not useless, but it makes a small change. And so we are really focusing on the best value items first. So the things that are going to make the biggest improvement to the way your bike rides per dollar spent. And that is why we've focused primarily on spring products to date. Either way, both these products are designed with the same kind of optimal characteristic in mind. We're trying to achieve the same thing with both of them. we're limited by laws of physics and current technology in some regards. We don't have zero friction seals, for example, and we don't have steel springs or even titanium springs that weigh as little as air does. So there's always a trade-off there. Hopefully we can continue to converge as those technologies develop, and we can get to the point where we truly have something with no downsides. For the time being though, everything has its trade-offs. We try to present these trade-offs clearly and honestly because it's ultimately you that has to ride the bike and decide whether you enjoy it or not, right? So we don't want you to buy the wrong product. We want to try to make the best product for you, and rather than making something and convincing you that you need it, it's more a matter from our point of view of trying to listen to what the market wants and then develop products that deliver that. I'm going to wrap it up with that. If you've got any questions about this, just email us, give us a call at the shop. We're more than happy to help you out in decision making there. Both these products are available either directly through our web store or through our network of dealers around the world. If your local bike shop does not currently stock our products, you can ask them to contact us. We will happily set them up with an account, and that way we can get you on the trails and hopefully enjoying the ride as much as possible. Till next time guys, I'll see you then.